Begin today the Gemara on Daf Chesam at Aleph, where it says Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Omar. This is a second shot here in the Gemara regarding two braises that were brought before. On the bottom of Zayin Amud Beis, in one braise it says that if you bring a get that's written on a boat to Eretz Yisrael, so it's like you're bringing it from Chutz La'aretz, and you'll have to testify about the kashrus of this get, as it said in the Mishnah, B'fonei nichtav, B'fonei nechtam. In another brayse it said, no, if you're bringing a get from a boat to Eretz Yisrael, so then you don't have to testify b'fonei nichtav, b'fonei nechtam, because it's like it's being brought in Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara before brought up pshat to explain the two brayses, that it's two different opinions. Here Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says another pshat. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, B'nahara is the Eretz Yisrael. If this is a boat that's in a river inside Eretz Yisrael itself, nobody would argue about this, that the get being brought from this boat into the dry land in Eretz Yisrael, that it's a get that's being brought from one location to another in Eretz Yisrael. And for sure, you do not have to testify that it was written and signed in front of you. So Rashi here explains, even though before we explained in the Gemara that on the boat you're not chayiv in trumas and maisris, because if you plant on the boat, at least according to one opinion, it doesn't get proper nourishment from the ground, so you're not chayiv in trumas and maisris. So you may think that it's not part of Eretz Yisrael. So Rashi explains, fine, it doesn't get nourishment, but that's only a halacha that applies to trumas and maisris. But it doesn't apply to a get. When it comes to a get, that's not the relevant point. The relevant point is that it's in, the fact is that the rivers are part of Eretz Yisrael. So if you're bringing a get from this boat in a river in Eretz Yisrael, it's all in Eretz Yisrael. Hello, what were the braises before speaking about? Ki pligi b'yam hagadol. What they were speaking about is the Yam hagadol, which is the Mediterranean Sea. So the question is, where exactly is the border of the Mediterranean Sea with Eretz Yisrael? As we'll see here, this brayse discusses this. The Tanya, the brayse says as follows: Eizehu Aretz ve'eizehu Chutz La'aretz. When it comes to the northern border of Eretz Yisrael, where is the northern border of Eretz Yisrael? And this is talking about the northwest of Eretz Yisrael, right at the corner by the water, by the Mediterranean Sea, by the northwest. Where is the border? Says the brayse. So there's a big mountain there, which is in the pasuk called Hoyer Hahar, and this brayse refers to it as Turei Amnain, which is the Targum of Hoyer Hahar. So this mountain, what the brayse is going to say over here is, this mountain of Hoyer Hahar, every mountain has a slope on one side and a slope on the other side. So there's the slope of the mountain that goes down to the north, which is further up in the north, and then there's the slope of the mountain that comes down to the south, further into Eretz Yisrael. So where's the border on the northwestern corner of Eretz Yisrael? The border is right in the center of the mountain. When you come to the top of the mountain, so the north side of it is outside of Eretz Yisrael, and the south side of it is inside Eretz Yisrael. Says the brayse, Kol sheshifeya v'yored miturei amnan v'lefnim. So the slope going down from the mountain, which is the south side of the mountain, inside Eretz Yisrael. So that's Eretz Yisrael. Miturei amnan v'lachutz. And the slope going down from the top of the mountain to the north part of it, outside, so that's Chutz La'aretz. That's outside of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, this Turei Amnon, by the way, is today. It's further up all the way into Syria, I believe, or maybe in Lebanon. It's not it's much further out. I mean, before the Gemara spoke about Akai, which is in Eretz Yisrael. It's north, but it's much further down. But over here, when it talks about the northwestern corner of Eretz Yisrael, the border goes up much further, all the way up to Hoyer Hahar, to Turei Amnon. Okay, now the brayse discusses something else. The water, the Mediterranean Sea. So if there are islands that are there in the water, not far off the shore of Eretz Yisrael. So Hanisan Shebiyam, these islands that there are in the water. Which islands do I say are considered to be part of Eretz Yisrael? And which islands do I say are too far away from the dry land and it's not part of Eretz Yisrael? So the brayse says, what we do is we consider it as if kiluchut matuach aleim, as if there's a chut, a string that's being drawn down miturei amnain ad nachal Mitzrayim, from Turei Amnain, which is the tip of Eretz Yisrael in the north, and then Nachal Mitzrayim is the border of Eretz Yisrael all the way down on the south. So you draw a string down from Turei Amnain down all the way to Nachal Mitzrayim. You got a picture there? Very good. Okay. And so in the art school you have a picture, and some other Gemaras you might have a picture. And basically, if you're going to draw a straight line, if you're going to pull a string from Turei Amnain down to Nachal Mitzrayim, so there's going to be some water that's going to be inside that space. because the border is not a straight line. If the border was a straight line, so then there wouldn't be any water there. But Turei Amnon sort of sticks out further to the west, and Nachal Mitzrayim sticks out further to the west. And then the water comes in further into the east. So you have space of water that will be inside that imaginary line that you draw from Turei Amnon down to Nachal Mitzrayim. And therefore the Braisa says that Min hachot ulifnim Eretz Yisrael. So any islands that are inside that chut, that string, is part of Eretz Yisrael. Min hachut v'lachutz, any areas that are outside that imaginary string, chutz la'aretz. That's outside of Eretz Yisrael. That's Tanakama. This is the main thing that's relevant over here for the discussion that going back to the Braises before regarding these islands. So again, the Tanakama says that the islands, you have to see what's inside Turei Amnon and Nachal Mitzrayim. If it's further out into the Mediterranean, so then it's not part of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yehuda argues and says a tremendous chiddush here. Kol shekeneged Eretz Yisrael, any place inside the Mediterranean that's opposite Eretz Yisrael, opposite the borders of Eretz Yisrael, harehu Eretz Yisrael. It's all like part of Eretz Yisrael, as far out into the Mediterranean as you want, all the way in. Anything that's opposite Eretz Yisrael is going to be part of Eretz Yisrael. What does that mean? Why? I mean, doesn't Eretz Yisrael have a border? So he brings a pasuk. Shenem, the pasuk says, a gvul yam. What is the gvul? What is the border on the west? V'hay lechem hayam hagadol. That the Yam hagadol, which is the Mediterranean, that's the border on the west. But then the pasuk adds and says, the gvul zeh yilechem gvul. This gvul zeh, again, how do you read this? Gvul zeh yilechem gvul yam. This is the gvul on the west. So why is the pasuk saying this again? Gvul zeh yilechem gvul yam. What it's teaching you is that the Mediterranean itself, which is the border, is actually part of Eretz Yisrael. So it's not only a border, but Eretz Yisrael extends into the border itself. It becomes, so therefore anything opposite Eretz Yisrael in the Mediterranean is part of Eretz Yisrael. So now what does this mean? So here Rabbi Yehuda will explain. It doesn't mean that the entire Mediterranean is all going to be, any island, anywhere is going to be Eretz Yisrael. It has to be an island which is only opposite Eretz Yisrael. So you have the northern border and you have the southern border. Now anything opposite in the Mediterranean, opposite from the north and the south, will be part of Eretz Yisrael. If it's further up north in the Mediterranean or further down south in the Mediterranean, then it's not an island that's opposite Eretz Yisrael. Let's see in the words of the Rabbi Yehuda here. So if you have islands that are sort of on the sides and you're not sure if it's opposite of Eretz Yisrael itself, so then how do we measure this? So here also you have this imaginary line. You have to see it as if there's this string that's stretched out, or this line, this imaginary line that comes mikafluria, from Kafluria. Where's Kafluria? Kafluria, Rashi's opinion here in this Gemara is, it's what we said before, the top of the mountain of Turei Amnon. So that's the city on that top of the mountain was called Kafluria. So you go over there from the northern border, from Kafluria, and there's an imaginary line going out into the water from there. Vad Yam Ukyainis. This imaginary line goes all the way out to the Atlantic. And the same thing on the bottom, at the south of Eretz Yisrael. Uminachal Mitzrayim, the most southern place in Eretz Yisrael is Nachal Mitzrayim, and there's an imaginary line going out from there, Vad Yam Ukyainis, to all the way out to the Atlantic Ocean. So inside these two imaginary lines, Eretz Yisrael, any island within this imaginary line is Eretz Yisrael. Anywhere outside from this imaginary line, if it's further north or further south, that's going to be Chutz La'aretz. So obviously Rabbi Yehuda is saying there a tremendous chiddush, that Eretz Yisrael extends to the west. Anything that's within this imaginary line extends and is considered to be Eretz Yisrael. So one second. So in Rashi says that this is all only in the Mediterranean, any island in the Mediterranean. But the moment you come to Europe, you come to Chveis, Italy, Greece, you come to dry land, so then it's not included in this. It's only in the Mediterranean. Even though it does say in the Gemara the Lashon Ukyainis, the Atlantic is actually on the other side of Europe. So it seems like it does include the dry land, which is in between. But Rashi clearly says that this concept of opposite Eretz Yisrael, being part of Eretz Yisrael, is only in the Yam HaGadol, because that's what the pasuk is talking about. Tosfos, though, has a different shittah. Tosfos says no, that what's opposite Eretz Yisrael could include even what goes into dry land. There's a few pshatim in Tosfos, but one of the pshatim in Tosfos, he says that be'emes, it does go even into dry land, and this is a famous Tosfos here, and Tosfos says, Rabbeinu Peter. Rabbeinu Peter asked Rabbeinu Tam that if so, we are living here today in Europe, we should be chayiv and shmita and trumas and maestris over here because we're opposite Eretz Yisrael. If you look at the imaginary line, so aren't we opposite Eretz Yisrael? According to Rabbi Yehuda, we should be chayiv and trumas and maestris. That's the question he asked Rabbeinu Tam. So first of all, in the Taisus Harash, all the way out. So Taisus Harash answers and says that Rabbeinu Peter apparently made a mistake, or I'm not sure exactly, but he really. Where did these Rishonim live? They lived in France. France is much further up north. If anything, if there's any place which is opposite Eretz Yisrael, if you go a straight line out of Eretz Yisrael to Europe, maybe it's the bottom of Italy or the bottom of Spain, maybe. But in France, even in the south of France, is still north of Eretz Yisrael. So it's not opposite this imaginary line. So there's a discussion about this in Achrein. It depends how maybe the line has to curve because the world is not flat. So maybe if you curve the line, maybe France could be opposite of Eretz Yisrael. Either way. But Tosfos over here says that this imaginary line, that what's opposite is Eretz Yisrael, is based on the Psukim in Parshas Maseh where it describes the borders. And that's the borders of Eretz Yisrael, which the Yidden conquered when they came up to Eretz Yisrael, the Olam Mitzrayim. But the thing is, once the Yidden came up to that, once the Yidden were, the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed and the Yidden were expelled from Eretz Yisrael, that original Kedusha left. And now there's the Kedusha of Oilei Bavel. When Oilei Bavel came up to Eretz Yisrael for the second Beis Hamikdash, only the places that they actually conquered became Eretz Yisrael. The places that they didn't actually conquer did not get its Kedusha. So even if Rabbi Yehuda, even according to Rabbi Yehuda's shitted that it's an imaginary line that goes out, it doesn't apply to Europe because they didn't conquer Europe. So therefore he told the Rabbi Tam told him, so we're going to be potter of Trumas and Maestris. Okay. So what's relevant over here for the Pshat and the Gemara? What are we saying regarding the two brises? And one brise that said that if you bring from a boat, then it's Eretz Yisrael, and the other one says if you bring from the boat, then it's considered to be Chutz La'aretz. We're talking about a boat that's floating on the Mediterranean outside that imaginary line that the Tanna Kama said. The Tanna Kama said we have to have the imaginary line that goes down. Not out, but it goes down from Turi Amnin to Nachal Mitzrayim. And whatever's inside that line is Eretz Yisrael, whatever's outside that line is Chutz La'aretz. So you have this boat that's in the Mediterranean outside that imaginary line. So one Braisa is saying that it's Chutz La'aretz, like the Tanna Kama says, because it's outside the imaginary line that the Tanna Kama here said. And the other Braisa goes like Rabbi Yehuda that says, no, the imaginary line goes all the way out into the Mediterranean. So a boat that's floating anywhere in the Mediterranean within that opposite Eretz Yisrael will be Eretz Yisrael. That's the two brises that was brought before. Now the Gemara explains over here this pasuk according to the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan haya gvul mai of delay. According to the Rabbanan, that how do they dash in this extra word over here in the pasuk? Gvul zeh yilachem gvul yam. Why don't they learn from this that anything opposite Eretz Yisrael is also part of Eretz Yisrael, like Rabbi Yehuda? So the Gemara says, he learns from that pasuk to say that there's the islands that are within his imaginary line that are Eretz Yisrael. Without this pasuk, this extra word gvul, I would say that till where is Eretz Yisrael? Until where the dry land ends. Anything in water is not Eretz Yisrael. The Tanna Kama was also mechadish that there are certain islands that are part of Eretz Yisrael, as long as it's within that imaginary line that goes down from Turi Amnain to Nachal Mitzrayim. So that's what he learns out from this extra word of Gvul. So you don't have any source to say that it goes all the way out into the Mediterranean. Now, Rabbi Yehuda argues, Rabbi Yehuda says, Nissen le'tzrich ikra. Those islands that are within that imaginary line from Turi Amnain to Nachal Mitzrayim, that doesn't need a pasuk, because that's pashut, that it's part of Eretz Yisrael. Because the dry land extends out on the top and on the bottom, and then in the middle it sort of curves in, but it's because it extends out on the top of the bottom, the fact that any islands that are there are part of the dry land, it's like an extension of the dry land. Sometimes you have islands that are very close to dry land. It's really just part of the dry land. It's like the water is still shallow and you have islands over there. So for that you don't need a special pasuk. So the extra pasuk Gvul Yam is teaching me that it goes out all the way to any islands that there is further out in the Mediterranean. Going back to the Mishnah, Rab Meir Oima Akoy Eretz Yisrael. It said in the Mishnah, Rab Meir says that Akoy is like Eretz Yisrael. And then the Mishnah regarding Akoy, what did it say? What was the lashon of the Mishnah? Rab Meir says that Akoy is Eretz Yisrael for Gittin, right? He says regarding Gittin, it's considered to be Eretz Yisrael. But for regarding other halachas, it's not considered to be Eretz Yisrael. So by my name Rab Chia bar Abba, the shaila was asked from Rab Chia bar Abba about this. A person sells an Evet Kanani that he owns to Surya. So now the halacha is you're not allowed to sell an Evet Kanani to Chutz La'aretz. Why not? Because the Evet Kanani is chayiv in mitzvahs like a woman. And there's an isser to leave Eretz Yisrael. And that isser applies even to a woman. So when you sell an Evet Kanani to Chutz La'aretz, you're causing him to be over a isser. He now has to leave Eretz Yisrael. So therefore Chachamim gave a penalty to the person that bought this Evet, that the Evet goes free. Because you caused him to be over this isser, so he goes free. It's a Mishnah later here in this Masechta. So now the question is, if you sell your Evet to Surya, Surya is basically in what's today Syria. Now this area of Surya, as we'll see soon in the Gemara, it's an area that David HaMelech conquered. And the Gemara will soon say that this place Syria is called Kibush Yachid. He conquered it alone, it wasn't part of Eretz Yisrael. So the question is, what kind of a status does this place of Surya have? Is it like you sold this Evet Kanani down to Chutz La'aretz, and therefore he should go free? That's the penalty Chazal said if you sell an Evet to Chutz La'aretz. Or no, Surya, since it was conquered by David HaMelech, the Gemara will soon explain that it becomes part of Eretz Yisrael, and therefore it does not go free. So our Gemara is following the opinion that really Surya is part of Eretz Yisrael, but there is still a Tumah that there is in Surya that Chachamim will gaze it there. So do we say, because there's still a Tumah in this place, so therefore it's considered like you sold him out to Eretz Ha'amim, or no? It's considered Surya, David HaMelech conquered it, and it's considered to be part of Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara answers, Amalahu. So he answered, Rab Chia bar Abba answered, Tenisua. We could understand this from what we learned in the Mishnah, because Rab Meir said, Akoy Eretz Yisrael Gittin. Akoy, the northern city of Eretz Yisrael, so that has the halacha of Eretz Yisrael regarding Gittin, a get that's brought from there to Eretz Yisrael. Legittin in, only regarding the halacha of a get being brought, but la'avadim loy, not regarding an eved that's sold there. If you sell an eved to Akoy, so then he goes out free, because it's considered to be that you sold him out of Eretz Yisrael. Akoy is actually out of Eretz Yisrael, at least half of Akoy. There's a discussion about this in the Rishonim, but at least half of Akoy is out of Eretz Yisrael, so you sold him out of Eretz Yisrael. So definitely Surya, which is much further than Akoy, definitely if you sell him there, the Eved will go out free. So here the Gemara brings a Braisa which will tell us more details about the halacha of Surya. Tana Rabbana, we learned in the Braisa, b'shloisha drachim, there are three ways that Shafsa Surya Eretz Yisrael, that Syria it has the halacha similar to Eretz Yisrael, b'shloisha l'chutz la'aretz, and in other three ways it has the halacha of chutz la'aretz. And here the Gemara gives a siman regarding these three halachas. Siman, ayin beis, beis reish, reish kof. So the first halacha is afra tamei k'chutz la'aretz. The earth in Surya is tamei just like chutz la'aretz. Chachamim were geyser that the earth anywhere in chutz la'aretz is tamei, and Syria has the same halacha. It's tamei. V'hamoicha abdu l'Surya. If you sell your slave, your Evet Kanani to Surya, kamoicha b'chutz la'aretz. It's like you sold him to chutz la'aretz and he goes free. And the third halacha, v'hamevi get m'Surya. If you deliver a get from Surya to Eretz Yisrael, kimevi b'chutz la'aretz. It's like a get that's being brought from chutz la'aretz, and you have to testify b'fanei nichtav, b'fanei nechtam. Now, b'shloisha l'Eretz Yisrael. But in another three ways, there are another three halachas that Surya has the halacha like Eretz Yisrael. Chayeves b'maiser b'shvius Eretz Yisrael. You chayev in maiser and shmita just like Eretz Yisrael itself. And also v'haroitze likonis la b'tare nichnas. If you want to enter into Surya and remain pure, it's possible. The Gemara will soon explain how it's possible if we just said that the offer is tamei. So, but there is a way that it's possible to enter into Syria and remain tar. And the third thing, if you buy a property in Surya, it's like you're buying a piece of land in the outskirts of Yerushalayim. And the Gemara will soon explain the relevance of that. Okay, so now the Gemara goes through all the halachas that this Braisa said. So the Braisa just said that in Syria, you're obligated in the mitzvah of Maisres and Shemitah, just like Eretz Yisrael. Why is that? Kosovar, it's because this Braisa is of the opinion, Kibush Yachid, Shmei Kibush, that the conquering of Surya, even though it happened through a Yachid, who's the Yachid there? David HaMelech. He conquered it alone. Nevertheless, it's considered to be that it's conquered and it's an addition, it's added to Eretz Yisrael. Now Rashi here defines, what does Kibush Yachid here mean? Kibush Yachid here means that David HaMelech conquered it on his own, for his own need, for his own purpose. He maybe wanted to collect more taxes, but he wasn't collecting it for the sake of all of Klal Yisrael going out together with all the Yidden to conquer it, to make it part of Eretz Yisrael. He conquered it alone. That's Rashi's pshat. Taisus brings from the Sifri another pshat that the reason why Syria is on the category of Kibush Yachid and it's not like regular Eretz Yisrael is because he conquered it before he finished conquering the rest of Eretz Yisrael. There was areas in Eretz Yisrael which were not yet fully conquered, and he went and conquered Syria first. If he would have conquered it after he finished conquering the whole Eretz Yisrael, he could add it to Eretz Yisrael. But not if he conquers it before he finishes conquering the whole Eretz Yisrael. That's Taisus' pshat. But the Mandama in this Brisa says, true, it's Kibush Yachid, but it still becomes an addition to Eretz Yisrael, and therefore Yechayiv and Trumis and Maisris and Shmita Minatayra. The next thing it said in the Brisa, if you want to enter into Syria and remain pure, nichnas, you can enter there and remain pure. But the Brisa continued and said that midrabanan, they were geyser in Syria, that the earth there is tamei. Apparently the reason is because why would Chachamim geyser on the earth to be tamei? Because the goyim would bury their mesim in places without making a kever. And apparently Syria still had a lot of goyim living there, so therefore they were geyser on the earth that it should be tamei. So how could you enter into Syria and still be tar? So the Gemara answers, Bishida, Teva, Migdal. That's if he enters into Syria without being on the ground. He enters in a box or in a closet or in some kind of a trunk. So he's in the airspace. He's not on the ground itself. And the Gemara brings the source of this concept. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Hanichnas le'eretz amim. A person that enters into Eretz Amim, into not Syria, but into Chutz La'aretz. And he enters B'shida Teva Migdal. He's inside, maybe he's inside a carriage, inside a wagon, or inside a box. So Rabbi metame. Rabbi says he's still going to be tameh. And the reason is, Rashi explains, because in Eretz Ha'amim, Chacham will geyser tumah on the ground, and they will also geyser tumah on the airspace as well. Now Rashi explains, even though he's sort of closed in a box, so why shouldn't the fact that it's closed in a box, which is like an oil for itself, why shouldn't that be a chatzitza? Why shouldn't he be separated from the tumah in the air? So Rashi says, because oil zarek lo yishmei oil. When you're closed inside an oil, which is not stationary in one place, it's moving around, that's not a separation. It's like you're in open, exposed to the air, and therefore you're in the airspace, you become tameh. Rabbi Yosef ben Rabbi Yehuda metaher. Rabbi Yosef ben Rabbi Yehuda says you will be tar because you're inside the box. And the box is a chatzitza, even though it's moving around. Rabbi Yosef ben Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is it still separates you from the airspace of the tumah that there is in the air. Now the Gemara explains, so Rabbi said that the airspace makes you tameh. That's an Eretz Amim. Anywhere else in Chutz La'aretz. The Gazru, Al Gusha, Va'al Avira, because there was two different Gzeiras. There was a Gzeira that the ground is tameh, and there was a Gzeira also that the airspace is tameh. Chachamim didn't want the Yidden to leave Eretz Yisrael, so they made a Gzeira that even the airspace itself is tameh. Aval Surya, Al Gusha Gazru, Al Avira Le Gazru. But regarding Syria, the ground is tameh, but the airspace is not tameh. So that's what the Brisa meant, that as long as you go above ground, you go in a carriage, or you go on maybe you're riding on top of a horse and you're inside a box, so then you're not touching the ground, you won't be tameh. The next thing, again? And that's according to Rabbi, yeah, it's saying according to Rabbi.
So moving up.
The third thing it said in the Brisa was, if you buy a land in Syria, it's like you're buying this in the outskirts of Yerushalayim. What's the relevance of this? Rav Sheshes says, Loimar, this is teaching me, you're allowed to write a document to buy this property, and even on Shabbos. You want to buy a property from a guy, and this guy is leaving. This is your last opportunity to buy this property from this guy. So, and it's on Shabbos. You're allowed to buy it from him and write a document on Shabbos. But the Gemara clarifies right away, you're allowed to be over on a malachim and a Torah and write on Shabbos a document to buy this property from the guy. How could it be? Says the Gemara, it's like what Rava said, that you have the guy write a document for you, which is what's always called Amira L'Nachri. You have the guy writing it for you, so usually you're not allowed to have a guy do a malacha for you. That's Isser Midrabanan. But over here, Chachamim suspended their Isser Midrabanan of having a guy do the malacha for you for the purpose of writing this document. So Achanami here, what's the pshat? You tell the guy and he writes a document for you in order to be able to buy this property. So this is whether it's in Eretz Yisrael, and now the Gemara is saying in Syria it's the same thing. Even though telling a guy to do a malacha for you in Shabbos is a shvos, which means a issa midrabanan, but nevertheless, mishum yishuv Eretz Yisrael like gazer rabbanan. But in order to fulfill the mitzvah of settling Eretz Yisrael and buying the properties of the Goyim, Chachamim did not decree, and over here you're allowed to write, have the Goy that is write this document for you. So that's two pshatim in what a Yishuv Eretz Yisrael means. According to some Rishonim, there's a famous Ramban. The Ramban says it is a mitzvah in Torah even today to settle the land. There's a real mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. But then there's what Rashi here says. There's a long letter from the Rebbe Rashab about this, very interesting. And he's medayik here from Rashi. If you look, Rashi here says that the point is legara shev dikacham. It's not about the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, because most Rishonim hold that there is no mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, but it's about expelling the Goyim. There's a lav of lois sachanim, not to allow Goyim to live in Eretz Yisrael and not to live amongst Goyim that serve Avodah Zarah and so on. So over here, this is a mitzvah to expel the Goyim from the land. So you're allowed to write this document even on Shabbos, or have the Goy write this document for you even on Shabbos. That's the relevance of this halacha regarding Surya. Sagt the Gemara Tan Rabbanon, we learned the halacha in the Braisa as follows. This is connected back to the halacha of testifying b'fanei nichtav, b'fanei nechtam, when a get is brought for a woman. So now, before we learn the Gemara inside, as we'll see in the Mishnah on the next daf, the same halacha that applies to a isha is also regarding an eved. One of the ways to free an eved is by writing a document. His master writes him a document. You are freed. So now this document that an eved brings from Chutz La'aretz Eretz Yisrael, that he's free, and we're not sure if the document is authentic or not. And this document has to be written lishma as well. All the halachas of a get apply to the shtar that an eved is freed with as well. So the halacha to testify b'fanei nichtav b'fanei nechtam applies to this document that frees an eved as well. So Tana Rabbani we learned in the Braisa eved shehevi Gittin. An eved brings a document from Chutz La'aretz, and it's written in it as follows: Okasav boy atzmecha. You yourself are free, and all of my nechasim, all of my possessions are acquired to you, are given to you. Basically, he's bringing a document that says that his master freed him and gave him away all of his possessions. Okay, now he has to verify the authenticity of this document. Okay, so the Braisa says, Atzmai kana, he himself, he will go free. And the reason is because he just has to testify, b'fanei nichtav, b'fanei nechtam, this was written in front of me, and he's believed. We learned before by a get of an isha. If an isha brings her own get, she's believed to testify about her own get, that it's an authentic get and it's kosher, and she's mugareshes. Same thing with the Eved. In order to authenticate this document, he's believed to say that this is that I'm free. But nechasim loikana. However, when it comes to the money that's written in this document, that his master is giving him all the money and all his possessions, for that is not believed to testify about this. This special leniency that there is for a isha, or the same applies to an eved, is only a special leniency for the divorce of a isha or for the freedom of an eved. But regarding the money that's written here in this document, for that you need proper two witnesses to authenticate the document. So until you don't bring those two witnesses, you're not going to get a penny of what's written here in this document. That's the Braisa. Now this the Gemara asks Shaila, boy, the Shaila was asked, how about if the language of the Braisa is written all in one? It's not divided into two statements. Kol nechasai kenuyin lecha. The master, the Eved is bringing a document, and it says in it, my master wrote to me, Kol nechasai kenuyin lecha. All of my possessions are acquired to you. Now that includes himself. That means that he himself, being one of the possessions of the master, goes free, and he also gets all the possessions. So it's not written in two separate statements. So what's the halacha over here? So because it's written in one statement, so the question is, do I say that I look at the level of the trust that we need for himself, and for that we will trust him himself to say that it's authentic? Or do we look at the level of trust that we need for the money that's included in this statement? And for that we need two Eidim. So Omar Abai, that is, Abai says, so since he's believed to say that he is free, and it's all in one statement saying that he's free and all the possessions are his, so if he goes free, so all the money is his as well. It goes together. We can't split this. On this Rava comes and says, no, why are you putting it all together? Himself, he will go free, because mididavi, a get isha, because the halach, as I said before, regarding an eved, bringing a document is the same like a get, that he's believed to testify that the document is authentic. But when it comes to the money here, he shouldn't get a penny, because midi the havakim shtar is the alma. The halacha regarding the money that's written in this document is, just like any document, you have to bring two witnesses to verify that it's authentic. So how should he get anything? So Rav is basically arguing you have to split this. So Hadam Abaye, now later on, Abaye retracted of his previous opinion, and Abaye said the opposite. Because he can't get any of the money that's written in this document that's his, because he has no two Eidim to verify this document, so he doesn't go free himself either, so he gets nothing. But again, Rava asks on this, I understand why you're saying that he shouldn't get any money, because it's just like any other document in a money matter that you need Eidim to verify this, so he doesn't get the money. But himself, he should acquire get isha, because for this, it should be like the halacha of a get isha that he's believed to say, to verify that he is free. So so therefore Rava argues in Abaye, and Rava says, both the case that was brought before in the Braise, where it was two separate statements. There was the statement about himself, atzmacha, and the statement about the money, nochasai, knuyin lecha. And echad over here, when you have this case, that it's all one statement, the money and his own freedom is all in the same line. In both of these cases, we're going to split the halacha of this shtar here. Atzmai kana, himself he acquires, and a chasam loikana. But the possessions he's not kaina. And this, as the Gemara will soon say, is what's known as palginon dibura. Even though it's one story, it's one statement in this shtar, but and l'chayre, you can't split it. Either it's authentic or it's not. So how are you splitting it? But Rava says, no, we do split it. Regarding himself, we say that we believe him to say he goes free. And regarding the money, we don't believe him, and he doesn't go free. Palgina dibura. And the Gemara in the Hamshach will bring the source of this idea of Palgina dibura that we see in the Braisa.